Hello everyone, I am Chris. Welcome to the Bagmaker's Workroom. Today's episode is going to be all about cutting. From cutting tools to different cutting methods, even cutting mats. So before we get started, I want to thank you for joining me and welcome you to my workroom. Okay, today is all about cutting. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is the easiest and best way to cut. Typically that's going to be with a mat like the one you see here and a rotary cutter and a ruler. A lot of times patterns, especially bag patterns, are rectangles or squares. So the easiest thing to do and the quickest way to cut, and a lot of times the most accurate way to cut, is to take an actual ruler and a rotary cutter and cut the measurements as per the pattern says. Now to do this, you typically use the grid on your mat as well as the grid on your ruler to accomplish that. So I have a piece of faux leather here, and let's say that we want to cut a piece that is 2 inches by 6 inches. So I'm going to use, first of all, make sure I have a nice straight edge. And I can see here that it looks like this edge is not straight because you can see the line here where up here the line is covered. So the first thing I'm going to do is to take my ruler and line it up along the straight edge. And you can see here how this line is off. We're even down here, but we have a little excess up here. So I'm just going to take my rotary cutter and I'm just going to cut that right off. Okay, so now we have a good straight edge. If I want to cut this 2 by 6, I'm going to line it up, and now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to show you this as a right-handed person. If you're left-handed, you can do it just the opposite. But I'm going to line it up on one of the lines on my mat, or you can even use the lines on your ruler to do that. And I'm going to measure 2 inches. And then I'm going to look at my ruler and find out where the 6-inch mark is. I'm going to line that up so my 6-inch mark is here, my 2-inch mark is here. I'm just going to hold that down and I'm going to use my blade to cut this. And then like that, I have a 2 by 6 piece that maybe you use as a strap connector or something like that. That's going to be the most accurate way to cut. Now, some people are not comfortable using a rotary cutter and a ruler, and my suggestion there is to just practice, because it typically is not going to be near as accurate if you take, and I'm going to do this on the right side, if you take your ruler, and I'm going to use a Sharpie. Certainly don't use a Sharpie if you're using it on your project. But if you line up your ruler 2 by 6 and you draw a line, it's going to be 6 inches and 2 inches, and then use a pair of scissors to cut that, you can already see it's taking me longer, because by now this already would have been cut with a rotary cutter. Okay, so now I have a piece that's 2 by 6. When I compare it to the 2 by 6 piece that I cut with the rotary cutter, they're pretty close. It's off a little bit. And what happens a lot of times is, depending on how thick your pen is going to depend on, well, do I cut on the inside of that line or the outside of that line? It depends on how you line up your ruler. So for speed and accuracy, I definitely recommend a rotary cutter with a ruler versus a pair of scissors and drawing it out. Now, rotary cutters, let's talk about those for just a second. This is the rotary cutter that I like. It is an Omnigrip cutter, and the reason why I like it so much is for 2 reasons actually. One is that I can actually put it in the locked position, and when it's in the locked position, I cannot do anything to get this thing, like if I push on this, it does not move. So my blade does not get exposed. I have a light setting and a heavy duty setting. There's no tab or button that I need to push the blade out. All I have to do to initiate this blade is to push down on my table and just simply move the blade forward. So without taking and pushing any buttons, I'm just going to take it, push it down, and move forward, and then it's cut. And the blade automatically goes right back into that circle so that it's not exposed, so if I bump it with my hand, I don't have to worry about cutting myself. This is actually a, like I said, it's an Omnigrip, but it is a Kai product. And Kai scissors and Kai cutters are some of my favorite things. So they come in different sizes. This is a 45mm blade. This here is a 28mm blade. It also comes in a 60mm blade, which is obviously a lot bigger. I don't have one of those to show you. But this is also an Omnigrip Kai cutter. And sometimes these smaller, it works the same way where you go to heavy or soft, depending on how much you want to expose. And then same type of deal where you just take the blade, run it across, and it cuts it. Okay? So a lot of times these smaller blades are a little easier going around curves, which is why I have this one. And basically the two of these together are perfect for all the cutting and bag making that I need. Now, let's talk about some things to make all of this a lot simpler. We know that we have rulers. So the rulers give us square edges, okay? And they allow us to cut different lengths. This ruler is a 24-inch ruler. I really like the 24-inch rulers because a lot of times handles and straps are 24 inches, so I tend to lean towards 24-inch rulers. My absolute favorite ruler is this one right here. This is a Creative, sorry that light's a little off, there you go. This is a Creative Grids ruler, and it actually has 3 different edges on it, 3 different curved edges on it. This one here is a 1.5-inch radius. We have a 2-inch radius, and we have a 3-inch radius. Typically, most patterns are going to be one of these 3. Here is the Alley B bottom pattern piece. And if you take your ruler, you can actually line this up and find the curve that applies to it. I'm going to do it this way so it gets out of the light. Okay, you can find the curve that applies to it. You know, if that one didn't, you would try this one, you could try this one, but chances are one of these is going to line up. So when I cut this, I can actually take my rotary blade, I'm going to turn this, and run it right along here to give me a nice even edge. And then I know all 4 of my edges will be the same. Whenever you have any kind of acrylic template or anything like this that you can take your blade and run it along, you're always going to get a much cleaner and better cut than just taking a pair of scissors and trying to cut along. So this here, again, it is a Creative Grids ruler. Another thing I love about Creative Grids is it has this non-stick, these little non-stick spots on the back. So what that means is that if you take a piece of fabric and you lay it down, any kind of pressure that you put on it, you know, it's not going to slide. It's not going to move. Okay? If you take something else, and I'm going to use this here because I know it does not have any non-stick on it, and you put it down, you're going to see it can move. Okay, this one, it does not move. It has that non-stick grip. So these Creative Grid rulers are great, and it's great for these curved edges. Really helps out. Now, since I have this one out, we'll go ahead and talk about it. This is a template, and I know these templates are hard to see because they're clear. I'll put it on here, it'll be a little easier. And this is for a tassel. So tassels can obviously be, you know, any length. You don't have to cut it this long, but they give you the option to cut it up to this long. And another thing, another way that I like to cut is not only with these rotary cutters, but also with X-Acto knives. So this is just an X-Acto knife that I picked up at Lowe's, just a Kobalt. And you can actually use it. It works better a lot of times with these type of templates because the blades don't get down in between these lines very well. So usually when I'm using this type of template, I'm actually going to use a X-Acto knife. And I'm just going to cut down each row. And then you'll see it will create a tassel for you. Okay? So just another type of template to make everything a little bit easier when you're cutting things out. Another template is this circle template. Now, this circle template, again, if you have some kind of curve and in basically a circle, or half circle, you can actually line it up. You have a line on here that tells you where to fold your fabric. So let's say we want to do a circle, and we're going to take a piece of fabric, we're going to fold it, and we're going to actually line our fabric fold line up right on the edge of the fabric on that circle. Then we're just going to take some kind of cutting tool. In this case, I'm going to use my X-Acto knife because, again, I have little slots here. And I'm going to hold this down and I'm just going to cut this. And I'm just going to cut right in the groove. Okay? And then you end up having, and I need a new blade here. Use my scissors to cut this. Make sure you always have a fresh blade when you're getting ready to cut something, but then you have a perfect circle. So circles for me are some of the most difficult things to cut. I don't really know why, but they are. And this template has really made it a lot easier to cut circles and half circles. Okay, moving along, another template that I have that I really, really like is a zipper template. Now, this template here will give you the option for 1/2 inch and 3/8 of an inch wide openings for your zipper pockets. Typically a 1/2 inch width is going to be for number 5 zipper, and the 3/8 of an inch width is going to be for number 3 zipper. This specific template gives you 7, 8, and 9 inch on each one, and what you can do is just draw it out or use one of your cutters and get your exact box, exactly the size you need. So it's going to stick my cutter in there, cut it down. Sometimes you have to shore it up with your scissors, so let's see how this did. Yep, got a little, sometimes it's hard to get exactly in the corners, but let's face it, that's a heck of a lot easier than trying to measure and make sure that you have exactly the right size that you need. Okay? So we're getting a lot of cuts on this, but I think you get the idea. And now we have a perfect 3/8 of an inch zipper opening. So this here is a zipper template. Now, I don't know, this is a template that was from Tops and Bobbins, and I think the company's been sold. So I'm not sure that they still have this one. A lot of people I have seen have had individual templates with maybe just one of these sizes. So keep your eyes open for those, because any kind of template, acrylic template that you can use is really a great aid to help you cut accurately. Okay, so I have another piece of scrap here. And the last thing I want to talk about is acrylic templates, patterned acrylic templates. So if you make a pattern often, it may be worth your while to invest in a set of acrylic templates for that pattern. Okay, and here's an example of one right here. So you will actually get all of the different pieces, and I just keep them together with a clip, or with a little wire clip here. So if the pattern is all rectangles, I don't buy the templates. To me, it's easier to cut it just with a ruler and a rotary cutter and be done with it. But if the pattern has a lot of curves, then I invest in the templates if it's something I'm going to make often. So here's one that I make quite often. Take this apart and show you. And this one has a curve on it. So when you use these templates, what I'm typically going to do is use my rotary cutter and just cut all the way around. I'm going to turn this because I'm right-handed and I'm going to need to go around. So I'm going to line that up at the bottom. I'm just going to go right around this circle. All right, I'm going to turn it one more time. Line this up. And go ahead and finish cutting it. So now I have this piece cut just like that. Easy to go. And I'm going to link down below where you can get templates. Sometimes actual pattern makers will have templates available for their patterns, so check their site as well as the site that I'm going to link below. Now, in addition to rotary cutters and templates and that type of thing, you also need a good pair of scissors. And I love Kai scissors. In my opinion, Kai scissors are the best on the market. And this is not a plug for Kai. I mean, they're not paying me to say this. I just, as you can see, I have Kai scissors. I love Kai scissors. Depending on what I'm doing is going to depend on which pair of scissors I use. This one here, this is the 7230 model. And as you see, it has kind of a flatter bottom with an angle, a little bit more so than these. So you can actually lay this on the table as you cut and keep it nice and flat, okay? These are probably my favorite Kai scissors that I have. This here, this is a 5220 pair, and this does same type of thing, but I like to use these for, these are kind of my cording scissors, my zipper scissors, things like that, that I don't want to say ruin my good pair, but I kind of have a pair for everything. I guess we all do, right? And then this one here, this pair is the pair that I use to clip into seams around curved edges. So once you sew edges together, or if you're sewing maybe zippers onto edges, you know, sometimes you need to clip the seams. This is the pair I use for that. This is the 5135 pair, and they are so sharp and they are fantastic. So find a pair of scissors that you like and stick with it. A lot of times, not only is it dependent on how they cut, but how they feel in your hand, okay? And if you're left-handed, make sure you get yourself a pair of left-handed scissors. They are different. So don't think that you can use a right hand, I mean, I guess you could use a right hand pair if it works okay for you. But the reality is, if you're left-handed, get a pair of left-handed scissors. And there's plenty of people out there who carry those. Set these aside. Our pinking shears. So I have two pairs of pinking shears here. This is a Ginger pair, and this is just a Friskers pair. These scissors have got that zigzag on them. Both of them do. And Basically what these are used for is to cut down curved edges. It's just an alternative to using a pair of scissors to clip in the edge. So if you have a curved edge like this and you want to trim it down, instead of making these clips like I did here, you can actually use a pair of pinking shears to do that. And it will accomplish the same thing with all of these little ridges. They just won't be as deep. But if you cut close enough to your stitching, it'll accomplish what you need. If you're interested in pinking shears, I think Kai actually has a pair of pinking shears. I don't use them as often. I usually like to just clip in my seams when I need to. But if pinking shears is something that you use, go ahead and look at the Kai. I think the Kai would probably be one of the better pairs. Now, Ginger is obviously a very good pair of scissors as well, so those would probably work fine for you. So the moral of this is to try to find ways to make the cutting easier, quicker, accurate. In my opinion, rotary cutters, rulers, templates are the way to go. They are going to make your life a lot easier, and you're going to get a much better, accurate product by using these tools versus just using scissors to cut. So thank you for joining me this week for the Bagmaker's Workroom, all things cutting. Next time we're going to talk about interfacings and stabilizers. What is the difference between the two and how do they make differences in our projects? So until next time, happy sewing.